Welcome back to the It's Bigger Than Me podcast. I'm your host, Molly Trotter Gomez. You guys, you're in for a treat. The topic we are going to dive in today, it is making America godly again. Now, my friend Tuan Nguyen, I am super excited for you to meet him. This is a godly man, kingdom entrepreneur. He's had so much success, not only just leading himself, his marriage, other kingdom entrepreneurs. This guy really is about it. And, we could spend a whole hour just talking about his story, his success, his prison ministry. I mean, you're probably like, wait, what? Yeah, you're going to want to go connect with him after this because there's a lot of really great things that he's doing. But when we jumped on this podcast, we were like, what do we want to talk about? There's a lot of things. And he just pulls up his sweater. He's like, let's make America godly again. So I cannot wait for you to just meet this man, to dig in. So Tuan, before we dive in on this topic that I know both of us are very passionate about, tell the folks at home a little bit more about yourself.
So my name is Tuan Nguyen, and I'm the founder of Premier Excel. It's a kingdom-based driven coaching business where I help clients launch and scale their coaching offers. I guess the unique story about me was I went to prison not once, not twice, but actually three times. And I tell people all the time, I just sold the wrong product. I sold high ticket drugs, which landed me in prison. And Molly, I tell people that prison was the best thing that ever happened to me
Mm.
because through my brokenness, I was able to surrender my life to God, and God literally transformed me from just being a gang member, being drug addicted, to now preaching the gospel. So a big part of my growth was actually just learning how to preach and just memorize the word, getting discipled inside prison, and then just from there, just learning how to just navigate once I got home. What I'm really passionate about is just the things that God's placed in my life. I want to come back and I want to bring that to the prisons. God's given me this vision to transform prison culture with like leadership and communication along with faith. So that's just a big part of my story that I always love sharing is because I never forget where I come from.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many stopping points that could have stopped you, but yet it didn't. So if you're just in the first few minutes, if you don't grab anything else, which I'm sure you will, grab a hold of that right there, because there's so many pieces in that just condensed version of his story where it's like, wow, like you just kept going and you kept going. So I love that part of your story. I'm so excited to see what God's going to do in and through you, just through this expansion of this idea of really just getting into the prisons and really being able to minister, which I know you're already doing, but I know there's so much more. Now, for today's topic, make America godly again. I know both of us are very excited because I like to say, Daddy came home. Trump is back in office. Like, I'm grateful because he's going to get the country on track. Not that he's the end all be all, the answer to everything. Most importantly, the topic, making America godly again. But it starts with having, a good leader to really be able to like guide the country as a whole. So I'd be curious to know your thoughts, your feelings, all the things on that, because, hopefully we are heading into just more stable times, if you will, as a country, to say the least.
I remember it was in 2016. I was incarcerated and we didn't really have like access to like a lot of, media, but what I did have was I had this small little radio and every single day I started listening to conservative radio. Okay. And I used to listen to like Sean Hannity, and all these other conservative radio co-hosts. And then that was when President Trump was running against Hillary Clinton, right? And I didn't really know nothing about politics during that time. It was just a time where I was just growing in the Lord. I was just focused on ministry and just becoming a leader. But for some reason, God gave me like this passion to want to learn about politics, something that I was never interested in. And every single day, I would just tune in and I would listen because I had no idea what the difference between a Republican and a Democrat was. As a felon, you can't vote until you get off parole. So, I didn't think that my vote really mattered,
Mm.
but your prayers mattered. And so during that time, God gave me an unction to really learn how to pray for not only our nation, but the kings and rulers that would be appointed. And so I started seeing more and more as like started understanding like different laws that were being passed, different values. And then I realized, wow, I'm actually a conservative. So I would probably vote Republican. But that was the beginning of just like the Trump era, and then me just really having this passion to want to know more about politics and how that actually applies to like how are things going to work in the economy once I get out? Where are my taxpayers going? Like things that I was very ignorant about, I started learning more about when I was in prison.
I mean, the amount of times recently that I have heard people who've been in prison, it was one of the biggest blessings. Is actually mind blowing to me as I'm listening to you share this because you've been in a couple different times. But when you're like when you're in solitude, like figuring out like, okay, what do I want to focus my time and attention on before when I get out? I think how powerful is that for you to really just kind of educate yourself? I have heard more people in the 2024 election that had not voted before said, hey, my voice gets to be heard. And no matter who you voted for, your voice gets to be heard, you know? And just like you said, Tuan, like I wasn't like one party this way or the other, but when I started aligning values and what I believe was right and what, I want when I eventually have kids someday, what kind of world, what kind of society do I want my kids coming into that definitely aligned more with the Republican side for sure. And not to say either party is perfect by any stretch of the imagination. There are things where you don't align 100%, and it's not necessarily even the person. Even though yes, I said, yeah, Daddy's coming home. He's back in the White House. It's really the policies, right? It's what they're going to do, what they stand for, to really be able to give the freedoms back to the American people and be that upstanding country again. But most importantly, I think within the last 4 years, this last, presidential like cycle that we saw so much darkness come out and people just being like, well, I guess this is what it's going to be, just kind of rolling over. But there's also a lot of people that were like, no, no, no. Like they may have left the room, but they're coming back into the room and be like, we have to change things and we have to do something different. I'd love to know your thoughts on that.
Uh, um, we went through a very dark season in the last 4 years. I remember when I remember when Joe Biden won in 2020, and I was kind of devastated. Just the amount of votes that he got. I think it was like over 80 something million, more than President Obama. And those things just didn't make sense to me. Like literally during that time, Biden campaigned from his basement while these Trump rallies were like going crazy. And I thought there's no way that Trump would lose in 2020. And I remember very clearly because I was staying up late at night, waiting for the countdown to see who was going to win. And there was like a pause light like at midnight, and they stopped all counting, I think. And then I think later on in the morning, there was this influx of all these ballots that just came out of nowhere. And then all of a sudden, like Trump was in the lead, and in the morning, Biden was in the lead. And all these hundreds and hundreds and thousands of votes came in, and we lost the election. And I was devastated. And, a part of me was like, man, I know they cheated, right? And it was kind of hard to prove at that time because the media was part of it. They were covering everything, and the only thing I could really resort back to was God's still sovereign, you know. And I realized that I started questioning like, why did God allow this? Okay. And I think this is a conversation that I often have with some of my friends that maybe don't have the same views as me. And there's like some scriptures that really come to mind. If you think about Pharaoh, um, God said this in Exodus 9:16. He says, "But I've raised you up for this very purpose, that I might show you my power and that my name might be proclaimed in all the earth." God allowed Pharaoh to be a wicked ruler to oppress Israel. And through Pharaoh's rebellion and eventual defeat, God displayed his power and delivered his people from slavery. There's another king. King Ahab was one of Israel's most wicked kings. He married Jezebel and led the nation into Baal worship. So, despite idolatry, God allowed him to rule over Israel too, so
Mm.
that he can also show his power through the prophet Elijah. And what I discovered was God uses both righteous and wicked rulers to accomplish his purposes. Even when rulers act sinfully, there's always a purpose. And so I never really found myself complaining a lot about like Joe Biden, and just because I knew what had happened was God was using Joe Biden to bring us back to him because we started getting away from God. And that's what you saw like in the past 4 years leading to Trump's victory, is like the world got so dark in everything, like the media and the corruption that was just being planted, the agenda that was being planted in the schools. And it brought us to a point where Christians finally rose up. And the biggest part of my prayer just in these past maybe like 6 months is, Lord, grant us repentance for the remission of our sins. Lord, we have strayed away from you. And I think it's in uh I forgot what verse it's in, but it talks about if my people who call me by my name would just turn from your wicked ways and just turn to me, then I'll heal the land, right? I'm paraphrasing that. I started thinking about that. I was like, okay, if Trump wins, it's because God's going to appoint him to bring us back closer to him. And I started thinking about all the Christians that were praying on behalf of our nation for a change, right? The media wouldn't show you that, but on election day, you saw a massive landslide victory. Why? Because there's so many believers joined together fasting. And I've never fasted in my life,
Mm,
Molly. I started fasting for our nation
come on.
for the first time because that's how desperate I felt. And I felt that burden that we as a nation need to pray for our future. Like, I don't even have kids yet, but I think about, okay, if I were to vote on policy, who would I want in office? And that would
Yes.
be Trump.
Come on. That it's so funny you bring up the fasting part because I had never really fasted too many times, like for maybe like once or twice, but this year, the beginning of the year, I don't really do resolutions, but I was like, all right, do we have something in there? And so I was like, you know what? I'm going to fast, but not for physical reasons. It's for spiritual reasons every Tuesday. Now, I was talking about it with my husband. I think I can maybe count on one, possibly two hands, how many Tuesdays I missed due to travel or other things. But little did I know, election day would land on a Tuesday, one of the most
Wow.
important days to fast. And when that hit, I was like, oh my gosh, like, whoo. And I felt that thing. Like, it was like, there's some days you just feel it. And so I had never really fasted that to that degree before every single week, right? But the way I saw God move was unlike anything else because I gave that to him. Because I was constantly like, Lord, I'm burning so many calories. I have a high metabolism. I'm talking and speaking all the time. I got to eat. And he's like, do you? And I'm like, dang it, there's my hang up. Like, I got to work on that. I get to like pull that back. But to your point, there were so many people praying and fasting to another point where I have heard on numerous accounts that the spells that witches and warlocks have been trying to cast against Trump and his people and people that are with him have not been working because he is covered. He is covered. And if that scares anybody, just understand that prayer works and it covers, point blank, period. I wake up at 2 o'clock in the morning to pray in a very demonic hour in the middle of the night where a lot of people get woken up with night terrors. Like, it is a thing and they're coming for you, but prayer works and it covers, period.
I totally agree. Yeah, I mean, it's that's interesting what you shared about just these spells and some of these witches that were casting things upon Donald Trump. I mean, think about how crazy this is, Molly. We got to witness two assassination attempts in our lifetime over President Trump. Like, it's crazy to see God's hand over President Trump through all of the legal battles, even the assassination, and then now he still stands triumphant. And then what about those prophecies that you've heard about Trump being the trumpet in this season? I think it was from the prophet Kim Clement, I think. Have you heard that one?
I vaguely have heard that one, but not a ton.
Yeah, it's pretty powerful just to kind of think of the season that we're in right now and what's going to take place. Like, when I think about like when is Jesus coming back, I pray and hope that he comes back during our lifetime where we don't even actually get to see death.
Yes, please, Lord. And so
Yeah.
many people I think have that same like thought and feeling of like, you're just seeing the expediting of so many different things that are like literally like it's prophecy, like in Revelation, like so many things that are playing out just physically and spiritually and all the things. So I agree. I believe that we will, but who knows? Only he knows the time and the hour. Like, we have no clue. And so anybody that tries to like pin that one, it's like, well, I mean, nobody knows. But at the same time, what we get to focus on too, which I know that you're great at, is no matter who's in office, no matter what's happening, no matter what's taking place, ask the Lord, like, what do I get to focus on today? What do you want me to do to help your people today? To kingdom come, your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Like we all have a mandate of some sort. And so I don't know if you have anything to say on that, but I always love to bring that focus point back because so many people get caught up with all the things outside rather than, well, what am I meant to do right here and right now? You know what I mean?
I think finding your purpose in the midst of all this chaos and noise is so important. One of the things I get to do probably every single week, Molly, is I get to go back into prison and I teach a class. It's called How Successful People Think. And so, a big focus is not really imposing my faith upon them because faith is something that they see in me already. But I like to kind of bring wealth and success because you know what the world's attracted to? The world's attracted to wealth and success, right? And operating in the kingdom, if you're able to have some measure of wealth or some measure of success, it's not always how much money you have, but the world's attracted to someone that has one of the two
Yes.
because that's what we call influence, right? Because the world they want certain things, and in order for you to win people over, you have to have a level of influence. When I first got out of prison, I I felt like God wanted me to create this prison transformation initiative, so I launched it. Had no idea how to raise money. Two of the board members that I had were former inmates that I thought were good dudes, and then they got out and they went back to prison.
Mm.
And here I am, just lonely old me trying to figure out, okay, how am I going to transform lives when I don't even know how to raise money and actually navigate through all this, right? And I soon realized that God was calling me to build a business. And as I was learning how to build a business during this time,
Hold on one
that's when I
second,
start.
Juan. 1 second. Your video completely shut off. Do you know?
Yeah, here
There
it
you
is.
are.
I'm
He's
back now.
back. All right.
Yeah.
Start over. Start over. I'll just cut that part. Start over from when you had two people that were in on the prison initiative with you, if you remember where that was at.
Yeah, so I got out and I started this prison transformation initiative. I thought that God had placed this in my spirit to launch a nonprofit, right? That was my passion. And I soon realized the two board members that I had were like two of my, best friends that I did time with. And when I got out, they both went different ways. One relapsed, went back to prison. The other one took another job as a director. And I was just left to myself and I didn't know how to raise money. I didn't know nothing about building a nonprofit, but that's when God shifted me. And he shifted me to really focus on growing the coaching business side and just learning how to do marketing, learning how to create offers, to make sales. And that's where I started getting a level of success. And the reason why I'm sharing this with you is because of my success in building the coaching business and making money and then just reaching more and just learning all the skills with online marketing, that allowed me to have more influence once I came back into the prisons versus coming back with really no success. And here I am trying to help you, you know, grow and develop into something greater. And so that um, I learned very quick that the world wants success and they want wealth. And if you can teach them how to gain some of the things that they want, faith just comes along with it.
Powerful. It's so true. That is it's as you're sharing that, that was, I believe, a big reason in our company at Kingdom Alliance where it wasn't an opportunity before, but it became one because opportunity can help really, obviously bring more into your life. And when people see more kingdom-minded men and women that have that good success, that have that good level of influence, they're using it wisely, they're stewarding it truthfully. Because we've seen people have money come in and then they kind of crack at the seams and they kind of fall into not so great patterns. So God is looking for people who are ready and willing to steward what he's given you. And when you put kingdom people on that level playing field, or even, I don't want to call it a pedestal because nobody wants to be up there, but people are like, I want that. How do I get that? And they're like, I like who you are. I want what you have. Like, what's the next step? And it's amazing because I've seen you be able to steward what God has given you. and be able to just really like impact so many people. And the next things that he'll birth through you, I know they're going to just be bigger and better than what the other ones were in the past, because there's just so much that you have sacrificed and you have given and you've been obedient to his calling, which is key. And so many people realize the importance of that, but are they willing to do that? Watching you being willing to do that and you're doing that is showing them, hey, this works. Like this is all a part of that thing. So I just really honor and appreciate you for that, because being that living example is what so many people need to see. Because I think the world will look at kingdom people being like, oh, well, you guys are broke and you just complain and you're hypocrites. Like I hear that a lot. Not true for all of us, not true for all of us, by the way. But just being able to raise up more people who can be people of excellence, I believe is going to just help more kingdom come.
Yeah, it's just really shifting the perspective from like return of investment to EROI. So eternal return of investment is what we call the EROI. And I think that's hard to kind of figure out, like if anyone's even like looking to build and launch an online business, your kingdom focus, you want to like turn your passion into profit. Um, it's not the easiest thing to do without the right support system, if that makes sense, right? When I first jumped into the game, I had this passion for building leaders, and I found out really quick that leadership is what people need, it's not what people want. And me trying to sell you leadership was hard because most people believe they need leadership. It's not what they really want. It's like someone that knows they need Jesus, but it's not what they really want.
Right.
It's very similar, right? And I had to learn out really fast that in order for me to really tap into the hearts of my potential people, I had to learn what they desired. Like I had to learn what their pain points were, because I had to learn how to translate that leadership could help you achieve X, Y, and Z. And if you're not able to do that in your messaging and hit those pain points of like, hey, look, here's what you desire, but through this vehicle, right? Because whatever it is that you're trying to sell, whether it's a product or maybe it's your coaching, it's just a vehicle to get you to where you want to go. A lot of coaches, a lot of entrepreneurs, when they first start off, they don't know how to translate that message over. And so they remain the world's best kept secret. And I want to speak more on behalf of like some of the kingdom entrepreneurs that I've ran into is like we have some of the hardest time charging what we're worth.
Mm-hmm.
And we get stuck just trying to do everything for free. And your gifts and your talents aren't free. I mean, they were given to you freely, right? Through the grace of God. But God calls you to go do business with your gifts and your talents, right? He calls you to multiply. And one of the struggles I had early on just was just having a poor perspective around making money. I used to think that, oh, if I talked about making money, I thought that was evil, right? But
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't say that making money is evil. It talks about for the love of money is the root of all kinds of evil. And I think the enemy has even twisted that and it has even planted fear amongst a lot of believers in believing that, oh, you can't make money, you can't, achieve a certain amount of wealth. That's evil, right? But then it goes back to this: you can't serve God and mammon. And if we can understand that, hey, money is not a good master, but it can be a good servant if you learn how to steward, right? You mentioned stewardship. And so yeah, I thought that was very interesting because I've ran across a lot of people that are kingdom that are just really struggling financially and just, finding purpose in their business. I talk to a lot of pastors that are struggling, just making ends meet. And I don't believe that God desires that. I believe that God desires us to prosper.
I agree. I agree. And there's so many people that will get stuck on like consulting or their circumstances or crowning their circumstances as king rather than the one true king of like, Lord, like what do you want to show me? Like what can I do? What do I need to pay attention to? What do you want to highlight to me? And I stopped asking why a long time ago and started asking what. Because a lot of us are circling the same mountains and then we're like, I don't understand because we're not asking the question. We're just like, God, can you take it away? And it's like, Well, no, there's something that you need to learn here. There's something that we get to dive into here. And so, yes, being able to give people like hope and opportunity and show them there are other ways. You just have to be willing, right? Willing is such a key word. Like, just like when you got out of prison, you were willing to go do something different. Just with the next 4 years of this presidency that we have, be willing to make it the best that you can because what you focus on grows. You could be like, oh, wasn't this, and focus on the negative. The world loves focusing on the negative and what we didn't get. But what we get to do as kingdom people is focus on what we do have. Lord, how can I steward this so the more can come? Because everybody wants more. Everybody wants more, but are you stewarding what you have right now in your hands, even if it's little, and asking, okay, what's next? What do you want me to do with this? And Tuan, I think you've done an incredible job of that. And it's just it's a testament to just who you are and what God's been able to do in and through you, which I think is great. So, as we kind of wrap up this podcast, is there anything else you'd love to share with us about? I mean, gosh, we've talked about so many amazing things here. Eternal ROI, like so many making America godly again, like so many great nuggets. So thank you for pouring out and anything else that you'd like to leave us with.
Uh, I think I want to circle back to I think it's Hebrews 13:3. It says, "Remember the prisoners as if you were chained up with them." And I want to kind of I want to kind of leave talking about like that right there and just asking for the community in prayer because in the past 3 years I've built a really thriving business, was able to scale that to like multiple seven figures. And it just seemed like this past year, like God allowed me to kind of go through some things, if you know what I mean. And a lot of people don't talk about the ups and downs when it comes to like building an online coaching business. But I want to kind of share the vulnerability of like what it takes. And things don't always go the way you want it. I was used to making like a certain amount of money each and every single month. And we were so focused on like scaling where we wanted to like reach these crazy mile markers of like 200, $500,000 in revenue a month. And that was because I was chasing after something that the world wanted me to chase after. I'm sharing this with you and the audience because you got to be careful in who you listen to, whether that's coaches, mentors, marketing gurus. If they're not kingdom focused, you'll be chasing after something that's not godly. And they might even use Christian language in their marketing. They might use kingdom as part of their marketing, but that's where you really have to have discernment. I found myself no longer thriving and I was striving. I felt like I had, I was focused on just willpower and no longer why power. And the Bible says the blessing of the Lord makes one rich and he adds no sorrow to it. A lot of the riches and the revenue that I was gaining felt like there was sorrow that came along with it.
Hmm.
And I believe that you can achieve a level of success without God's favor upon it because you see it all the time. You see the wicked get richer and richer every single day. And you often wonder, like, why are these people getting richer and richer? But I'm a servant of God and I don't have this. And it always reminds me that you don't know what comes with that. You don't know what comes with their wealth. You don't know the problems internally that they have. And so, um, a big part of just us wrapping this up is like, I don't know where you're at right now in your life, in your business. You're looking to launch one, you're looking to transition from one. I want to share with you this that there's going to be many opportunities where I often tell the guys in prison that, they always ask me like, Tuan, what should I do once I get out? What should I do? What should I do? And I said, you're going to be given two doors of opportunity. And sometimes you're going to pray, you're going to fast, you're going to ask God for direction on which door. And sometimes you're not going to get an answer because it's going to require you to step out in faith. And what I want to share is like, if you're in that season right now of like indecision, you've been waiting on God just to come through and it's a big decision in your life. I want you to look at these two doors of opportunity. And here's what I want to say. It's not what door you choose, it's how you go through each door. You can choose to walk through each door by faith and trust that God's going to be there every single step of the way. And he's going to guide you. He's going to teach you in this if you walk through faith. Because the flip side is if you walk through this door by fear, you'll always look back at that other door and you're going to live in total regret. I want to leave you guys with that. If you want to make 2025 like your best year, choose to walk through every single door with faith. You can't go wrong.
That is some incredible wisdom to be able to leave us with. How you walk through that door matters. Tuan, you are amazing. This has been just a fully loaded episode of just so much richness, wisdom, and goodness. So I just appreciate you. I honor you for taking the time to just pour out today. And thank you so much for being on the show.
It's been an honor.
Thank you so much for taking the time to listen to this episode. It means the world to me that you would lean in, listen in, and be able to hear the value that's being shared on this show. Don't forget, if you love this episode, rate the show, leave me a review, be sure to share it with a friend, and don't forget to tag me on social media. I will definitely be giving you a shout out. Also, come say hi, drop in the DMs. I would love to be able to hear what stood out to you the most on the episode, and if there's any topics that you would like to hear on the show. We'll see you next time.